Morning. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We do business for just about 30 minutes before we head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. We start from the global space, and we can tell you that oil prices climbed on Wednesday after an industry report that showed that U.S. crude and gasoline inventories fell as the market watched for a possible widening of the Israel-Gaza war, which may impact global oil supply. So we put our eyes on the numbers right there. We see it's green, unlike what we had yesterday. About this time, it was down almost 1%. But today we see it's in the green, 0.7%, $81.25 a barrel. That's for Brent. WTI of the United States, that's also up 0.8%, $78.94 a barrel. And key Middle Eastern oil producer Iran is yet to retaliate. But of course, the uncertainty around that is one of the factors driving the market at this time, as well as expectations today. We expect inflation numbers from the United States. That will also feed into sentiments around oil. Now, back in Nigeria, Nigeria's Minister of Finance, Mr. Waled, was called a high-level meeting to implement President Bola Tinubu's order for the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, the NNPCL, to sell crude to local refineries in Naira. The meeting was yesterday, and it had key figures such as the Petroleum Minister, the Chief Executive of the NNPCL, FIRS Chairman, and focused on overcoming long-standing challenges in the petroleum sector and enhancing local refinery capabilities. According to the Minister of Finance, this initiative is set to empower local refineries and stimulate growth. A whole lot of conversations have been going on about the demand for crude by local refiners in recent times, obviously led by the Dangote refinery. Now we're expecting the Port Harcourt refinery to come on board. That's another demand of crude domestically. So we hope these conversations not just end with conversations, but we see the implementation right there, especially after that pronouncement that crude will be sold in Naira to domestic refiners. Now we head to the Naira space and see, not very good picture. For the first time since the Dutch auction system started, we saw the Naira lose the growing steam, the positive steam. At the close of trade yesterday, it went down 0.71% on NAFEM. So while it opened at 1,570 Naira 99 kobo, it closed at 1,582 Naira 9 kobo on NAFEM. NAFEX was a bit of a positive right there, but I mean, the more realistic one would obviously be the NAFEM. So we wonder what's going on here. We know last week the CBN was very heavy, its intervention, the auctions. I think they had about 2 or 3 auctions, even though we still had some demand on METs because of the huge demand that was there before the supply. So perhaps we'll see another intervention from the central bank, and that would, take us back to that positive mood. Now, talking about the central bank, in a move aimed at boosting economic transparency, the Central Bank of Nigeria has reintroduced the publication of several key economic reports. The reports include the Purchasing Managers Index, as the PMI, Business Expectation Survey, and Inflation Expectation Report, among other crucial macroeconomic indicators. According to economist and Chief Executive Officer of Timeline Consult Limited, Mr. Shuaibu Idris, was a guest on Business Incorporated. This is a step in the right direction, and it should promote informed decision-making.
The Central Bank of Nigeria, and indeed Central Bank of any country, is established purposely for a number of reasons. Apart from being banker to the government of this nation, it is supposed to be a repository of data and knowledge. There is supposed to be a research department properly and adequately, staffed and funded, wherein they gather data, analyze, research, and bring out, periodical reports and statistics. I believe maybe Yemi Cardoso has been able to staff the department adequately and fund it, and therefore he's coming out with this. And I think it's a step in the right direction, like I did say, so we can now have a bit of a multiplicity of data to begin to see which one is the best. If you have something, say, from financial derivatives, another data from Stanbic IBTC, another data from, say, MBS, the Bureau of Statistics, and then another data from Central Bank of Nigeria, then you can compare and contrast and see to what extent are these data relevant? And I think it's a step in the right direction. I will say kudos to Yemi Cardoso and his team.
And then we move to the telecom sector, where that sector has been described as being in an intensive care unit, gasping for breath. This was the thought at the Hybrid Telecom Investment Forum organized by the Financial Derivatives Company in Lagos. The Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rawani, was a keynote speaker and organizer of the event, believes that there's an urgent need to rescue the sector from collapse. The future of Nigeria's telecom industry is the concern of Financial Derivatives Company as they sit for Telecoms Industry 2.0 conference to discuss the next investment frontier in Nigeria.
What do we see as Telecoms 2.0 in Nigeria? What do we want to achieve from that? Because the next 25 years will be very different from the last 25 years. But what happens in the next 25 years is a function of what we do, the choices we make, the decisions that we make, and the enabling environment that we create to attract not only domestic capital, but also foreign capital flows into the sector.
Delving into the issues is a panel conversation, and they are discussing the challenge of insufficient infrastructure, which is a major one, as well as policies hampering investment in the space.
Charges, levies, taxes that, again, as an industry, we have to deal with. We want to invest in infrastructure. It takes how many months to actually build the tower, and you have to negotiate, ROW right away. So it becomes quite taxing. But fortunately for us, I think speaking for Airtel in particular, we have a future-looking approach to Nigeria. As said by my very good friend Bolaji a while back, it is a market that you need to be in if you want to be in the industry. But I think the question is, because if you don't invest in capacity in this particular industry, growth not only of yourself and not only of the industry, but more importantly, the country is going to be impacted in the very near future.
However, this optimism is not shared by some other participants. One of them, the Chief Executive Officer of MTN Nigeria, Mr. Carl Toriola, who joined the meeting virtually. According to Mr. Toriola, there's an urgent need to rescue the sector from collapse as it is in an intensive care unit. He also notes that a fundamental challenge is that the financial returns expected from the industry are now so low that they threaten its very survival. For others on the panel, charting ways forward is priority, and it will include looking inwards.
Being able to source capital locally or align your investment strategy to the realities of local capital and foreign exchange, the skill sets that are available, affordability in the market, and who's going to be able to pay for the services, and the reality that in technology, a lot of the inputs are foreign.
If you look at mangoes or you look at pineapples supplied to Europe, those goods don't get picked from the farms until the plane is actually on the ground at the location. And that's only possible because of the kind of telecommunications and technology that is required. So technology and telecoms plays a key role in aviation, and aviation plays a key role in how markets function.
Sharing ideas and implementing strategies for the telcos was the motivation for the organizer, Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rawani. He believes there's a need.
What came out clearly is that the sector is actually bleeding. And you can see from $8 billion of revenues in 2020, it has dropped to about $3 billion now. So the revenues of this industry is a third of what it used to be, while their costs have increased. Like it was clearly put, this industry is in ICU, intensive care unit. Something needs to be done. What needs to be done? New investment will not come except the pricing formula is changed. That is what has happened. But it's quite clear that in the environment in which we are, that it's going to be very difficult. But like they said, it is during war that generals are made.
Developing the outcome from meetings such as this to meet up with challenges in the telecoms industry is another foundation to hit the $1 trillion economy, which President Bola Tinubu hopes to achieve by 2030. And that, they say, is another reason for this. Now let's talk about food security. Can run away from that, can we? And it was one of the issues raised there, how developing the telecom sector can actually reduce harvest loss, kind of bring in the food from the farm to the gate. Now let's look at another issue, which is that the federal government, remember, has put in place a 150 import-free duty season for importation of grains, mostly wheat, musk rice, cowpeas, and all of that. How can we expect this to affect the food security space? We know that customs is not very happy about this. They say that the country will lose about 188 billion naira because of the duty suspension for that period of 150 days. But of course, there are other areas. Domestic producers are also not so happy. They say this is another kind of competition to them. But I guess the federal government is focused on food security at this time. Let's discuss some of the impact and how we can maximize this period. Now, we'll do this with Ife Umunna. She's the head of strategy at AFEX. AFEX, we know, is a commodity index board, and so they deal a whole lot with commodities. Hi, Ife, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to have you. So tell me, what side are you on when we look at this import duty or tariff-free period for importation of food? We've heard the pros and the cons. Some, like the customs are counting the costs, that they will have to forego for this period. Domestic producers are thinking about the competition, but obviously the government is just looking at, let's feed the people at this time to reduce the hunger in the land. Where is AFEX in this?
I think for us, we know that it's important. We need it. People are hungry. There's not enough food within our borders, so we have to import. And when you look at the window, it's 150 days. So within that time, there is enough time to ensure that those who are locally producing adequately store their produce to ensure it doesn't waste. As it relates to ensuring that food is available, it's affordable, prices of commodities or produce will reduce, which is what we all want to see. So when it comes to this government intervention to ensure that we are allowing imports for just 150 days, we are in favor of this, definitely.
Yeah, but what about the spillover? And a lot of people have also warned, especially economists, have warned that this is so short, it's a very short-term measure. What are we doing? What are we using the 150 days to do that could, help and boost supply at the end of the 150 days?
So essentially, the 150 days is meant to cover the time between present and harvest, where we will see our local producers ensure that they have harvested their crops and there's more food in the market. During this time as well, both private and public sector are working towards ensuring that we improve our food commodity access and affordability throughout the country. So you see that states such as Niger or Lagos states are working on ensuring food production or food accessibility. Private sector organizations such as AFEX are ensuring that we're able to access or spur the capital markets and spur the access to financing for farmers, whether that's directly through cash or through inputs, so they're able to grow or produce more across various areas in Nigeria. So there are interventions ongoing both for the short term and the long term from private and public, and then partnerships collectively to ensure that we hopefully do not find ourselves in the same situation next year and thereafter.
Yeah, but I mean, I hear you, but I don't think I see a lot of, especially when it comes to the issue of storage, because as we speak now, we know that the price of some perishables like tomatoes and pepper have tapered because it's a harvest period. But then after the harvest period, prices surge again because there's no storage, no preservation for the period after harvest. How much work do you see going on in that space?
So we know that typically 40 to 50% of food is lost to post-harvest losses due to lack of storage. And what we've seen is we need to ensure that firstly, from a government perspective, we replenish the strategic grain reserves and then ensure that there's a constant way of ensuring that those with the commodities within that stay as should be, as well as getting private sector or different actors to engage in storage, training farmers and other stakeholders within the value chain to engage in storage. But a critical issue around storage is one, infrastructure as well as financing. So this is where you need the private sector to come on board, and this would require ease of doing business from a government perspective when it comes to regulations and bureaucracy to make sure that they're able to invest in storage, and it is seen as something more than just development projects. It's an actual financially viable for private sector actors as well.
So when you say development projects and the coming together of the public and the private sector, how, could you give an example? Do you have people, investors, maybe building warehouses, buying equipment, or how do you see that happening?
So, for instance, at Apex, we have over 280 warehouses across Nigeria, where we store commodities, both engaging with, again, private and public. We are engaging with both governments from various states and on a federal level to try and push towards more adequate and accessible storaging facilities for farmers. We provide storage facilities for the farmers that we work with, which are over 250,000 across the nation. So there are many examples where storage is a key topic or key aspect for those in the agriculture and food sector, but it does need to increase. We do have inadequate storage facilities in Nigeria. It's not enough for what we are producing or what we hope to produce and what we hope to store, so that we are not, or we get to the point of food security. And I think the key point is storage and infrastructure.
Yeah, so where are these storage facilities? Are they closer to the farm or closer to the gate? And then accessibility of it to the farmers.
So we ensure that we have our warehouses close in distance to the farmers that we work with, or farmer communities, or collectives that we work with, from Kaduna to Katsina, Niger State, Lagos State, the list goes on. But we ensure that there is accessibility for the farmers to our warehouses, where they're able to access these goods, because we also work with various other actors. We have a range of logistic processes that we can use to ensure that food moves. This is not to say that it is not difficult. We are still in Nigeria and we have some fundamental challenges in the process, but we aim to ensure that we're able to do so.
Yeah, so what about maintenance of those storage facilities? For instance, you do need power, electricity, to preserve some of those. How's that going with AFEX?
Naturally, the cost of running such warehouses is high. This is why it is a difficult endeavor for many to embark on. But naturally, as we always say, it would be much easier if we had stable light, if we had affordable, or we had security where one wouldn't have to look into private actors to provide that form of security across the country. So same as infrastructure when it comes to road networks, we need to ensure that we have stable light, that we have security, that there's a lack or there's better security across the states and the country as a whole.
What about transporting from the storage facilities to the market? We've heard a lot of transporters, logistics, stakeholders talk about checkpoints on the road. You've already talked about the issue of insecurity. Non-state actors also giving them another level of challenge in the process, in the value chain.
So security, again, becomes an issue when it comes to transportation, because at the point in which we say, even if we do go ahead to ensure our road networks are fixed, the aspect of security would still pose a challenge. So that's one that needs to be quickly rectified in order to ensure that we can move commodities or food from point A to point B without various challenges. As you said, there checkpoints. You find yourself in positions where corruption is rife, unfortunately. And when it comes to security or in securing our own goods, we ensure that we have, unfortunately, have to use private security to ensure that goods go from point A to point B, given our current scenario. So this is where, or this is why we and a range of other actors continuously ask to ensure that we tackle insecurity across Nigeria and fix our road network so that it is easier to move goods from point A to point B.
So if you could influence the decision and action of the Minister of Agriculture or the ministry itself, what do you think at this time should be giving priority and maybe a target period also that you think can make an impact on our drive towards food security in Nigeria?
I think there's a short-term and a long-term approach. In the short term, we have to ensure that we provide emergency aid and relief to Nigerians across the nation, whether that's through import waivers, which is currently ongoing, or providing some form of transfer of cash or aid where food is subsidized and people can access food. But in the long term, we have to look into how we got into this situation through strategic reserves being diminished. We need to see that that is not a continuous or systemic ongoing challenge. We have to ensure that they are replenished, that there is a plan long-term to see farmers produce adequate amounts with improved seeds so that they're protected against climate change issues. And they are, using advanced or at least modern agricultural technologies to do so. We need to work with both the private sector when it comes to catalyzing finance to ensure that agriculture is a viable and robust sector where government is simply a pillar of support rather than spurring it. But at the moment, they would need to ensure that they are leading the charge in terms of helping us out of this dilemma that we're in.
All right, Ife, thank you so much for that. We do hope that the minister is listening and implementation, well, at least could begin, especially in this period of, the duty-free period. But thank you so much, Ife, head of strategy with AFEX, for your time.
Okay.
That's right. Food security is still a challenge in Nigeria. We'll stay on it until we can eat. I believe. Let's head to the market now, do a little bit of review, see what happened yesterday before I will give you fresh numbers at intraday. That'll be at 1 p.m. But yesterday we saw that the bears still dominated the market. A lot of profit taking going on with major stocks beginning. The all-share index dropped actually 0.5%, and yes, we lost the 98,000 level, 97,000. Even the 97 is looking so shaky at the close of trade yesterday. I wonder what the intraday numbers will look like. And it's here to tell us that an equity cap 55.2 after the market lost 279 billion naira, shaved off that market cap yesterday at the close of trade. And so we see the volume, value, and deals looking positive, but don't be moved by that, because there was a lot of profit taking. Banking lost almost 2% at the close of trade. It's because of the fugas. We know that there are issues going on around FBN holding in the court and legal and CBN and Centervane, and it's part of it. Well, we don't know if that's what's driving sentiment around that. But even Zenith Bank, that just carried out their facts behind the offering, and we know that the other banks, FCMB, they're in the market at this time, but investors seem determined to take some profit even in the midst of all of this. Maybe there's a strategy to that. Consumer goods, however, was the only one that scaled through and got to the green territory, almost 1%, up 0.82% at the close of trade yesterday. Even oil and gas that had recovered was in the red, and that's because of profit taking on Japol Gold. Then top trades, we saw GT Co, Access Co, part of the fugas there. Even penny stocks coming up, insurance was also in the red. A lot of profit taking going on right there. Does the saving bond, the federal government saving bond, have anything to do with this? I think Anita should answer that question when he comes in the afternoon. That'll be at 1 p.m. for Business Incorporated. I'll be back with Anita Edit, but now let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studios.